What is up, fellow sickos? I am Dan Favale coming at you with, for the first time in a while, Mr. Mort Jensen of the NBA podcast fame, of Yahoo Sports fame, of HBO Max fame, and of course, of OnlyFans celebrity. We are gathered here round the HardwoodKnocks table today to predict the next wave of all NBA stars. We have some criteria in place. We're each going to alternate, pick a few players that we believe will be perennial in the all-NBA conversation and ultimately make those teams who have not already, again, with some criteria there to avoid some of the clearly obvious choices. But first and foremost, Mort, how the heck are you doing?
I'm doing well. This exercise was a little tougher because obviously we can't go like the Wemby route. So you need to go a little bit under the radar on these guys. But I think these types of episodes can always be interesting because it forces you to think a little bit outside the box. You might include guys where, you know, you differ a whole bunch with your castmate, and that always leads into interesting discussions about who is right, who is wrong, and why we both might be wrong or right.
Right. And so the criteria we put in place was they can have made an all-star team, but they can't have made an all-NBA team already. And we wanted to also filter out, this is really just two names we're talking about, but two players, assuming they play in the required number of games this season, in Victor Wembanyama and Chet Holmgren, now just feel like shoo-ins. And so they were not eligible for our inclusion here. The Wemby one specifically is just he's been, since basically day one, you knew he was going to be on the list as long as he plays in 65 games. So it's not a shot at Wemby. If anything, it's a tip of the cap to, I don't know if you saw this, Mort. I brought this up on the podcast that I recorded with Grant last week. There were people that were talking about whether he should be allowed to win Defensive Player of the Year because he dominates by virtue of his physical tools, and is that ethical enough?
Wait, what is that ethical?
That was the gist of it. I'm not talking verbatim, but it was just because other players either have to do more complicated things or can't lean on being, hey, I'm 8 feet tall with a 30-foot wingspan.
Oh my God. Okay. Wow. So that's where we've gone to now in the discourse. That's interesting.
Dark place on social media, but we're not. He's not here today because he's going to make a bunch of all NBA teams. I don't know. He's going to make one. He's going to win Defensive Player of the Year.
He might win MVP. Yeah. Literally, he might win freaking MVP this year. By the way, if he just finishes in the top 3, I need a little partial credit on that because I called him MVP before the year. People were after me, and I said the Spurs could win between 50 and 55 games. Again, people were saying I was ridiculous. Look at where they are. I need a little partial credit on that one. A little.
You do, because I think I was on a podcast with you and poo-pooed the idea. I thought you were just ahead of your skis on it. I thought the Spurs would be good, not biggest threat to the Oklahoma City Thunder in the entire league good, and they're on that level. I also saw you heat checked and predicted that the Spurs are going to win the title now.
I did.
So that's it's not. Look, you would have said that to me in September, October. I would have laughed at you. Now I just shrug and yeah, it's possible.
Well, I mean, so I will say, just because I don't want to toot my own horn on that one specifically and saying, oh, I said that back in September, because that is a recent development for me that I think the Spurs could win the title. The way that they're just closing up games, like their fourth quarter defense is outrageous. I wrote about this over at Yahoo. They're just continuously keeping teams under 40.
Though
it's very ethical, yeah. But like just the way they're winning against good teams and are just closing them out and are doing so consistently, it's you can't ignore that. It's just kind of my feel to it.
And I think, no, you did not predict them to win the title preseason, but you had them in the 50-win territory range, so you can tip your cap there. And ironically, just because Wemby's not eligible doesn't mean none of their players will be selected as we go through this exercise. With that in mind, was there anything else that you gave special consideration to when trying to figure out which players you were going to select?
So I didn't want to have too many rookies. This was a very good rookie class, and I also wanted to give you a little space for someone because I could have gone with 3 rookies on this one. I chose to leave one specific rookie out of the equation because I think you're going to grab him solely because I think I could give a little bit more shine to someone else. And also it freed up one more guy who isn't a rookie.
Well, with that, do you want to give us the first pick? If I had to, can I try and predict who your first pick is going to be?
Yes, you can.
Cooper Flagg.
Yeah. I mean, look, how could it not be? Cooper Flagg. Here's the thing. I actually had thought of going in a different direction. I'm hoping you're not going to steal my pick later on, but Cooper is Cooper, right? The fact that he came in to the league with this defensive reputation of being this game-altering defender, and now he's averaging 20 points a game, and 4+ assists, and we're barely talking about his defense. He turned 19 in December. How could you not have this guy as someone who's going to be a perennial all-star, perennial all-NBA caliber player? His defense at this point, I need to see more before I'm going to throw him into like future DPOY discussions, because I think the burden of offense he's had to carry this year has just been so big that it's unfair, I think, to evaluate him on what he's done defensively this year, because like he's been gassed for many games because he's had to carry these Mavs offensively speaking, which I thought would be a year 2 thing. It's not. It's a year 1 thing. So like kudos to Cooper Flagg.
He's the no notes guy in this, right? I don't know who would have any pushback. I would be curious. What's the case against Cooper Flagg not making all NBA teams into the future?
He's shooting under 30% from 3 in his rookie season. That's it.
Right. And I think what's important there, though, is, I mean, that's a question I have, and I'm sure you have too, is, okay, what does the 3-point shot ultimately look like? But I think when you look at Dallas's spacing or the level of offense that he is ferried with creating there, the fact that he's as good of a finisher at the rim now, and it's clearly just not his peak. I think he's at 64% in the restricted area in the half court. Yeah, 64.4% in the restricted area in the half court. And we're looking at someone who a majority of those are just going on like he's creating those looks for himself. Yep. And so to be around, what is the league average in the restricted area? It has to be around there. Maybe he's a little bit above it. I think that's a hugely positive indicator, in part because I would think as time goes on, the goal in Dallas is to not only get better players around him in general, but the spacing is going to improve, because they have a lot of talented guys on that roster throughout this season, but it just is not an oasis of spacing. And I think that as that changes and as he gets to play with I just imagine Cooper Flagg, like Kyrie Irving would be an example, assuming he's still in Dallas next season. Imagine Cooper Flagg getting to play off of Kyrie Irving. And so you have that I know they have ball handlers where if Najee Marshall gets downhill, they have other guys on the team that are respectable, but Kyrie Irving's a different level. That's just going to open up life for Cooper Flagg in the half court. And to be there when, to only have the question of, what does his jump shot look like given the season that Dallas has had, I think is probably a bigger deal than even people are making it out to be. He won't be my rookie of the year, I think, just because Knueppel has played so much more, and he's also playing for a real team, which matters too. But I've come away from this season, having not watched him much before the NBA, just knowing, he was worth the hype and then some.
Oh, yeah. By the way, you brought up Kyrie Irving as the spacer to be. I'm looking at the draft, and if they have a chance at getting Darius Acuff, hell yeah, out of Arkansas, 6'3", possibly 6'4". He looks bigger. He looks like I think he's going to surprise a lot of people during the measurement part of the combine. Like someone like him who's shooting 44.5% from 3 and creating his own looks as well. Like that's the type of lead guard he needs alongside him. Someone who will space. Like if the Mavs go out and find a limited floor spacer at the lead guard position to pair with Flagg, I'm not going to love it, Dan. I'm not going to love that. I need someone who is very much a D shooting the 3 ball to just provide Flagg with all of the spacing. Not some of it, all of it.
Yeah, I mean, even if you draft with that in mind, and then you have Kyrie coming back, and then hopefully Max Christie shoots the ball as well as what is he, sub 34% when he's played post All-Star, but on the season, Max Christie's had a good shooting year. Just more spacing for that dude. I would love to see long-term what maybe a stretch 5 element would look like alongside Cooper Flagg. I don't know you need to make that a priority, but it'd be something that I would definitely want to see.
Agreed.
How do you feel about the jump shot?
I trust it so far. I mean, yeah, the 3-point shot is not exactly a strength of his right now. He's 19 years old. I think his mechanics are fine. I think he had a stretch there. Well, I mean, he still has that stretch, but there was like this period, I want to say December, January, thereabouts, where he was just flat out automatic, like from the mid-range area, where I felt like whenever he would have that 2-dribble pull-up, it would just be nylon. So I feel pretty good about it. It doesn't, there's nothing with his jump shot that makes me go that I don't trust it, where I think it needs to be rebuilt, any of that thing. Like it seems very fluid. So I'm just not worried at all.
I am kind of still curious just what the 3-ball becomes from him. And when you are looking at his efficiency, like the sub 40 effective field goal percentage on pull-ups this year. But I think when even he gets into the arc and shows some counters, I trust that even if we don't think he's going to be this bankable 3-point shooter at any point, that he'll just be able to get to counters inside the arc and have you mentioned the mid-range game before. So even if it's like the close mid-range in the paint still, but not in the restricted area, I think his touch there is only going to improve. And even now is not the end of the world, but shooting 47% in the paint in the half court, again, inside this Mavericks offense, I think is pretty important.
So who do you have now?
I'm going to go with, I don't know if this ultimately reflects my confidence level, but I'm going to go with Knueppel of the Charlotte Hornets. He is, I don't know what my expectations were for him as a rookie. I thought he would play a bunch of minutes in Charlotte for sure, but to come in and now you've been the most available of just the most important players on this team all year. And the shooting is the shooting in the sense that, it's scary. The things that I didn't realize enough of coming in is, this is someone who can generate his own shot. This is someone who might be willing to set screens. This is someone who could set up stuff for other players. Like he's thrown a good number of just those higher value assists when you're looking at passes that are going to lead to threes or maybe closer looks at the rim. Even his own ability to get to the rim. I guess I just underestimated like the size and strength of him. Yep. So this is, and defensively, I don't know what he'll be long term, but he has the size and again is strong enough to where it's, that's not going to be someone who submarines your entire defense. And the number that stands out to me for him on his rookie season, just to reinforce like how good he's been at handling the ball or the things that he could do with the ball, he's in the 88th percentile, Mort, of unassisted shots at the rim. That is just for a rookie who that's not supposed to be his strength. That's insane. And this is just, we're not there to the point where you feel good if you toggle with some of the lineups that, look at how good the Hornets are when he's playing out without LaMelo Ball. I think he's a quality of player who could eventually be the engine of your offense. I won't say he'll get there next year. And if LaMelo and Brandon Miller both remain there, that is something you'll have to question long-term is what could his actual ceiling be. But his ability to kind of already be a fringe all-star, and he's not someone who needs to dominate the ball or isn't always going to be the 1B option. I really think his ceiling is, did he back his way into like a couple second team All-NBA performances or something?
The 88th percentile stat is just rubbing it in my face because I was so wrong. I had Knueppel. I've told you this before. I had him as a year 2 guy. I thought he'd come in, struggle on the ball, and he'd be kind of relegated to what Keegan Murray was the first year in Sacramento. Just like, hey, you know what? Focus on the 3-ball. We'll slowly develop your on-ball skills. And then this dude just came in like, nope. I can create everything I need to. Like, I can create he doesn't do it all that much, like only about 8%, but like I can create my own 3-point look. I can certainly create my own 2-pointers. I can create my own drives. I can hit practically 70% near the rim. He's been rubbing it in all year, and I love it. Like Knueppel, you are invited to kick my ass, sir. It's completely fine because I was so goddamn wrong, and I am fully enjoying being this wrong because I love these kind of surprises. I really do. I thought we'd see this level of play in year 2, maybe even year 3. For us to see this in year 1, just it puts the ceiling so much higher. To quote the great Michael Jordan, the ceiling is now the roof.
That seems low.
Right? Seems low. Seems low.
I'm curious. The next frontier for him, I think, I want to see what he does if he does get more agency over the offense and how that translates to setting up for others. But I want to see if can that actual rim frequency, not just the ability to generate his own look there or get into the short mid-range area, does that come up? And with it, is this someone who you can trust to? Because I think a big part of you don't need to be an SGA level foul drawer, but you would like to see that number come up a little bit. But to do that, you might need to spend more time on the ball, which I think so much of his mystique is he doesn't need to spend more time on the ball. If that's not the way that you would, depending on how they go about this offseason, the draft, free agency, trades, he just fits alongside anyone and everyone. There's not everyone wants to see them upgrade like the combo forward spot, the Miles Bridges spot. Maybe some people have talked about, do they need a big better than Diabate? There's just not someone you could suggest the Hornets would go after who Knueppel cannot fit alongside.
Right. He is going to be the next league primary plug and play guy in that sense that he can come into every single team, regardless of setup, regardless of system. The fact that his shooting prowess will just allow him to, at the very least, have an off-ball role of major significance. But the fact that he can also initiate plays, can play off pick and rolls, and he can do so, scaling it down, scaling it up, whatever he needs to do, that just makes him so damn valuable moving forward for wherever he's whatever situation he's going to find himself in.
Do you ever wonder if players like him, because they're so willing and able to set those off-ball screens, that their teams won't necessarily use them on the ball as much as you would like, because it's actually hard to get someone who can do that as effectively while maintaining the accuracy off those plays or just drawing in the defense the way that they do?
I think that depends on the coaching staff, because some coaches will obviously look at that and go, oh, this is super valuable. Let's stick into that. And others will say, look, we have to evaluate what we think is more of a pressing concern for us. Do we want Knueppel to spend time as a screener? Do we want to unleash him more as an offensive player and actually use screens? Again, depends on who you are as a coach. I think playing for the Hornets, where Charles Lee has this very big focus on offensive efficiency and where everything has to be, really tight in terms of the offensive execution, I think he will understand what he might be relinquishing a little bit this year, and then he'll give it up on the back end next year. Whereas if Knueppel had ended up in Orlando with Jamal Mosley, I think Jamal would have been like, oh, yeah, you're a screener. And he would have averaged a fraction of what he does right now, offensively speaking. So, again, it comes down to the competence of your coaching staff.
I trust Charles Lee and his coaching staff. I'm just, now that you add, assuming they keep Kobe White around, you do have Brandon Miller. There will be room. I'm just curious what the ceiling is on, just as an arbitrary line. What does his pick and roll volume look like that is initiating? Because he's at under 3, comfortably under 3 per game this year. And so you'd like to probably see that based off how Charlotte plays their offense too. He doesn't need to be, LaMelo's probably only running 8 pick and rolls a game or something. I'd probably like to see that number double, come up around there.
Yeah. Look, for me, I don't even question the LaMelo and Brandon Miller fit with Khan. I actually think that trio works well. You don't need a guy to average 18 at the forward slot in Miles Bridges, for example. You have those guys. I've told you this before. I would prefer to have a sort of connector, a playmaking four instead, to have, Draymond is too old, and there isn't a typical Draymond in the league otherwise, but someone who can come in and just initiate plays with the ball in his hands. Even a Colin Morey-Boyles, for example, who is a great defensive player who will move the ball, who will score opportunistically. I think I'm using him as an example, would significantly upgrade these Hornets, because you can remove Miles Bridges from the equation and get significantly better, because you can spread his offense out onto these other guys and then replace his minutes with someone who's a better connector, defender, passer, everything. So I would have no issue basically moving forward and saying, okay, Hornets, you're going to be the 2020 versions of the Run TMC crowd from the Golden State Warriors with, Tim Hardaway, Mitch Richmond, Chris Mullin back in the day. Like, you can have your 1, 2, and 3 be your primary scorers as long as you have guys who are opportunistic in the front line. So, to me, it's just a matter of reshuffling some contracts.
Yeah, I'm not worried about his fit alongside anyone else or even Brandon Miller and LaMelo Ball specifically. I'm just curious whether that ecosystem and what he's able to do well, does that artificially repress his ceiling? So does he not belong in this? I think he will ultimately get there, but that would be something definitely, because he could certainly get to an all-star level, especially if you're going to play in the East. But the all-NBA level is like kind of that next bar. And so unless we think that Charlotte's going to be a fringe dynasty and they're going to routinely have 3 guys contending for all-NBA honors with LaMelo, Brandon Miller, and Knueppel, I feel fairly confident, though. I don't know if he would be my, if we picked Cooper Flagg was the easy number 1 pick here, but I've been pleasantly shocked, I think, by all that Knueppel can do.
Yeah, I agree.
Who's your next pick?
So I considered using the first pick on this guy, but I had a feeling you would go in a different route. Jalen Johnson, because I think he's the best player on the list here. Jalen is just great, man. Just absolutely great. 23 points, 10.5 boards, 8 assists, just a ridiculous transition player. The defense still holds up. Like, he'll have games, admittedly, where he'll have to carry such a big offensive burden that he has to scale down. But I also think moving forward, that is something the Hawks are going to be looking into, because if you look at their salary situation, they are in a position to use his rather ridiculous contract, $30 million straight over the next many years. CJ McCollum is coming off the books. Like, they just traded for Jonathan Kuminga. Like, they have these great mid-tier contracts in Nickeil Alexander-Walker, on Yeko Kongwu. Even Corey Kispert is not overpaid or anything of that stretch. Like, the Dyson Daniels contract, which I loved, you hate. Right now, you're looking more right than me on that one. But even so, they're not in a bad financial situation whatsoever. So I'm thinking they're going to plug some of those holes so Johnson will be even more effective next year and be able to pick his spots a little bit more. But the way that this dude just is hands down the best player on this team, and the way that he controls and dictates the flow of the game, I genuinely think that if the Hawks next year could approach 50 wins, we're going to see MVP buzz for Jalen Johnson. I think there's another step to his game. I think, or rather his evolution. I whenever I watch him play, I'm seeing someone who is just not done developing. So I'm looking at him, and I think he's got a future superstar career ahead of him.
He's a good pick. He's basically a one-man transition offense unto himself. Who is better at just running off of live rebounds right now than Jalen Johnson?
Yeah. See, it's funny because the first person or the first player that comes to mind isn't even in the league, because he's an old head now, but that was Sean Marion. Like, a guy who just would grab that board and just go ahead. Like, he reminds me of that type of player. Who is that? That's a really good question. Is it Giannis? Is Giannis the only one, like, where you really trust it?
Count the guys have to be on one hand.
No, but he's right up there. And I think that is, for him next year, I would not be surprised if there's a bigger emphasis on half-court execution as well. I think he can get there. I think the jump shot looks a lot better this year, even on higher volume. And we also see it from the free throw line. Again, higher volume, higher efficiency. He just takes these steps every single year, and all NBA seems like, I was about to say all NBA seems like something he could win this year, but like, are the Hawks good enough? Like, they're on this.
He would. I have
right.
The games played would be the only thing that I think would stop him at this point, and he's so there, far. Isn't he? So that's not going to be a concern with him. He's he's got one
games.
When he plays his next game, he'll be good, right? Or a few more games.
Yeah, 21. He's missed 7 games so far.
Yeah, he'll be fine. I think he gets in. You said his numbers at the top of this.
Right.
I would echo, even though the 3-point percentage doesn't look flashy, it's bordering on a career high, and he's at 36%, like above the break, which is really good. So 23 and 10 and 8. Yeah, that's gonna. He might even get some second team buzz, especially with if Maxi's not going to be eligible. is one to look out for. Like he might be in second team territory at this point.
Yeah, I really like Jalen Johnson. I think there's something there.
How do you feel? Because you mentioned the half court stuff. That's the one that I keep coming back to, where I just don't know, like him having to run offenses from a dead stop. I feel better about than I did a year or two ago. But I'm curious as to what's the level of, secondary creator that you need alongside him to like just make sure that things are properly open.
So that's the thing. I think that you need to make him your primary initiator, like on fast breaks off of rebounds. But if you're facing a good defense, you need a real lead guard, like someone who in the half court can turn him into more of a play finisher than a play creator. Not saying you can't run stuff through him in the half court. Obviously, you're going to need to.
Oh, yeah.
And you're going to need it in the short roll. You're going to need him at the elbows. You're going to need him in a bunch of different places. But having a real lead guard next to him in a half court situation specifically, where you can basically tell him, look, here is an opportunity for you to rim run. Here's an opportunity for you to pop. Like here, you can actually play off of a lead guard who is able and capable of creating for himself, as well as finding you in specific situations. That would be smart by the Hawks. And again, Trae Young was never that guy. Trae Young would occupy the offense to a different extent. So, like, I know some people will be sitting there thinking, hey, couldn't that have been Trae? I think they tried, man.
Yeah, because you mentioned, I don't even know if the player needs to be as good as you were mentioning, because I believe we've seen the difference even just having a CJ McCollum there.
Right.
And so when those two are on the court together, the Hawks half-court offense is in the 80th percentile. So you remove CJ McCollum, though, in the Jalen Johnson minutes, and now all of a sudden you're dipping below average. You probably want someone better than CJ McCollum, don't get me wrong, but that's the luxury of what Jalen Johnson could do. Is I don't know that you need an all-star floor general, or like you just need a secondary guy who's what would CJ McCollum have graded out as this year? Is he top 100? Like if you had a top 75, top 50 guy to place alongside him in sort of a similar role, maybe higher end than CJ McCollum for sure, you're probably just you're cooking from there.
Yeah. Yeah. I have no notes to that. I completely agree.
My next pick, I'm going to go with, I think someone that this will probably anger a bunch of people. Paolo Banchero, the Orlando Magic. He has made an all-star team, as has Jalen Johnson, was an all-star this year too. But I have been really impressed what I've seen with Paolo, even when stuff wasn't working out all year. I mentioned this a ton, so I'm just going to briefly mention it. The touch time is just down, and I think the ball stopping stuff has had some merit to it in previous seasons. I think he's tried a lot this year. His screening volume is up. That's a big one. He's kind of split when you dig into the numbers, and then if you're watching how the way their half-court offense is running, he's split duties with not even Desmond Bane, but Anthony Black has been given more breathing room and space to operate as well. I like what Paolo has done. If you look at some of the matchups that he has where he might have a star assignment on him, whether if it is Scotty Barnes guarding Paolo Banchero or is Jaren Jackson Jr. guarding Paolo Banchero, he will fan out to the corners to try and pull them more away from the play. He's not always going to work out when you're looking at Orlando spacing.
Right.
I really think he's more of a team-oriented player than people give him credit for. The shot selection is going to be what it is. Like sometimes you're going to love it, sometimes you're not. But the level of ball handling this guy has for someone his size, someone with his heft, and kind of the coordination he still has when he's getting downhill, I really have to believe that as the spacing around him improves, and if we had seen more of Franz Wagner, Desmond Bane, and Paolo Banchero this year, there would have been more of a proof of concept that he's going to make all-NBA teams. And people will say, oh, he was the number one pick. He should have made all-NBA teams already. This hasn't necessarily the situation been conducive to optimizing Paolo Banchero. The efficiency does need to come up. I'm not going to say that. Like, you want to see him be more consistent with the three ball. He is shooting over 40% on spot-up threes this year, though. And so if even that can become more of a consistent part of his arsenal, we all know about his ability to be able to draw free throws. I look at him, I watch him play, and the way that he has tried to fit in and alongside a bunch of different guys this year, and just what he can do when he gets going downhill. And then it's, again, middling efficiency and I don't want to belabor this as well, but this is someone who is now twice in the postseason attempted to carry an Orlando Magic offense, and he at least hasn't looked overmatched, even when the efficiency isn't going to be pretty through the 2 different postseason sample sizes. I really wonder if a coaching change would do him well, or even like the Franz stuff this year, and also the Paolo injury, and then we've seen Jalen Suggs banged up. You can't count on pitcher perfect health all the time, but Orlando has never really had what it thought was going to be its team available for an extended stretch this year.
Right.
And I think that's part of, maybe it's an excuse because we're dealing with, this is year 4 for him, but I think year 5, like this, of the players we mentioned, with the exception of Jalen Johnson, who's I think is going to make All-NBA this year, I think Paolo will be on an All-NBA team next season.
So you know how I feel about Paolo, but I will say this. And I don't want to limit this just to the winning streak right now, the 7-game winning streak. But I do think we've seen something in those 7 games. He has become more receptive to the idea of being a play finisher. Like, he's not holding the ball as much. Okay, so by the way, I haven't done the numbers on this. So if the numbers are wrong, then it's an eye test for me. It feels like, I should clarify, it feels like he's not holding the ball as much as he used to do early in the year. It feels like he's getting off of it quicker. It feels like he's making decisions a little bit quicker as well, like he's just moving it or taking a shot without having to stand there and, DeMar DeRozan it up. He's getting to the foul line. He's finally rebounding as someone his size. That's been one of my main criticisms for him. I have felt for a while that this dude should be more active on the glass because he's 6'9", 6'10", 250. And he's movable, and he's nimble, and he's athletic. Over this 7-game winning streak, he is hitting almost 55% from the field. And he's getting to the line 8 times per game, hitting that at an 80% rate. He's at, let me just look at it, 26 points, 9 rebounds, 5.5 assists. That is the Paolo Banchero you need. That is the Paolo Banchero that fits into what you just said, who could be an All-NBA type of guy. The whole thing for me, and why I've been very harsh on the young man, has been because he's been standing around a lot. And I to your point, you've told me this repeatedly. Look what he has to play with. And Franz Wagner suddenly lost his touch. You're not wrong. He did for a 3-year period. It was ridiculous, where he just literally couldn't shoot the ball. Jalen Suggs would be in and out of the lineups. Injuries galore, everything. I hear you. Now he's found it. And I'm sitting there going, the reason for this, in part, is also the acquisition of Desmond Bane, which you alluded to. In that same 7-game winning streak for Desmond Bane, 23.5 points, 5 assists, 4 rebounds, getting to the line, not shooting a ton of threes, surprisingly, only 4 a game, but is hitting 54% from the field, and he is not, I don't want to say he's the lead ball handler, but the amount of time he's on the ball now indicates that he is taking a bigger role within the offense, which allows Banchero to play off of him. And this is what was needed for a while. A lead guard to come in and say, I can get you 20 every single game. Paolo needs to feed off of that. Well, it's working right now. And whatever they're doing, they need to stick with it. And I know I'm long-winded on this one, so we'll just close it up with this. Even though they're winning, please, dear God, Orlando Magic, still go into the offseason and consider a coaching change. Just consider it.
God.
Still do it, because I don't trust Jamal Mosley in a playoff context, and I don't trust him to be particularly creative offensively speaking.
Do you think, how would you feel about them if they end up, because they're not in the play-in as of right now, but I mean, they're kind of jumbled right there.
Right.
Would you worry about them in a one-off setting, or do you think they're so clearly of, if they do fall to, because they're in 5 right now, but they're only a couple losses in front of 9, 8, 7, and 6?
What are you asking me, if I'd be worried if they make
if they have to face the Hornets in a playing game, or
Okay, look, these
I guess they won't
Magic,
face the Hornets in the first playing game. They don't have to worry about that. They'll be the 7-8 matchup, but the Heat or the Sixers or the Raptors. The Hawks, too.
Of course I would. Look, they have the 16th ranked offense in the league. Yes, I would, because at the end of the day, and I know I've said this a million times, at the end of the day, the team with the most points at the end of the game wins. If they can't generate enough offense, that's an issue. Like, you can be as good of a defensive team you need to be, but you still have to produce offensively. And this team has had games in this very season where they have just looked awful, where there's been no cohesion or anything. And look, I'm not trying to wash this 7-game winning streak away. This seems legit. It seems like they've turned a corner. It seems like they're really going about this the right way. But I also question, is this going to be the new permanent? Because Paolo Banchero has been finding himself in the mid-40s efficiency-wise over the course of his entire career. Are we suddenly to believe that he's just out of nowhere jumping 10 percentage points and that's the new norm? Probably not. And, like, again, Desmond Bane, 54% over this shooting over this winning streak as well. That's probably not the norm. So when things come down to norm, is that norm good enough to make me feel secure that they can beat an offensive potent team like, for example, the Hornets, if they do meet up in some variety? No, that could go both ways. I'm not saying they will lose, but I under no circumstances do I feel secure or safe about it.
I do think, to get back to just his future, what helps him is that he's not, you don't have to worry about him defensively. Some of his closeouts, kind of loaf around a little bit, but he has good size, knows how to use it. He's pretty nimble. You don't have to hide him. That goes a long way. And to your point about the efficiency is no, I don't know that it'll ever be through the roof, but he seems like he could be a Jalen Johnson level efficient scorer, especially if this year getting out and transitioning more. Can't remember if I mentioned this at the top, but this is the most amount of screens that he set per 75 possessions in his career. You're naturally going to be more efficient as a play finisher. And more, what happens if they put, how many plus shooters are in Orlando's rotation right now? And even if Franz was healthy, would you throw him in there? Maybe you would, just because he has on ball. He has a certain gravity, but
no.
Get like a, is it a stretch to say get like a second real outside threat on this team aside from a Desmond Bane, and things will open up even more? I believe that he can, especially you're going to shoot 80+% from the foul line, and you're going to be able to hit on what isn't the simplest shot diet inside the arc. If you can be over 50% inside there, I think that he could be around a Jalen Johnson level efficient scorer. And so I would feel pretty confident in saying that.
I think for me, the reason that I've been disappointed in Paolo is because what I see, I think I see the same thing as you do. But where you have a little bit more patience, I tend to probably not have it, because what I see, as well as you, is a 6'10", 250 power forward who's nimble as hell, who's athletic, who understands how to be physical. And you're just kind of waiting for him to put it all together. So, like, when you're looking at the raw numbers and you're seeing him stuck in the mid-40s, and you're seeing, like, him not getting traction, when you're seeing him having these, like, weird-ass turnaround 16-foot, fadeaways with 4 on the shot clock after he's milked the clock for 17 seconds, like, that's when you get frustrated, because you know he can do so much more. You want to get him into those situations where, he's the trailer and he gets just 2 power dribbles and he's right at the basket. You know he can dunk on damn near anyone. You know he can go in and score against virtually everyone. Like, you just need the right shot diet. And it feels like on some level, occasionally, because I agree with you that the roster around him has been just under every ounce of criticism.
And I also do think, to support your concern, he's probably had, just anecdotally speaking, if you're looking at some of the touches he's gotten in the mid-range area, like, he's probably had more open space than he's ever had. And it's not like his percentage until recently has really gone through the roof.
Right. But, like, I will give him credit because he is trending in the right direction. Just, I'm looking at Basketball Reference right now, and that also tracks with the eye test. Like, he's taking more shots within 0 to 3 feet and 3 to 10 feet more than ever before. So, like, that is trending in the right direction. The long 2 has almost been halved. That is a sign of progress. So, like, I'm going to be open-minded about him becoming better. That said, now we're talking about all NBA. That I'm not closing the door on. I am still closing the door on him being, your tier 1 superstar who can lead you deep into the playoffs. I don't trust him to do that at any point.
I probably haven't closed the door on that just yet. And
That's fair.
part of it is we need to see. I think he has another notch or three to go as a playmaker, too. And that's, I
That's
think
the
splitting
swing.
that's the swing, but it's also if you combine with what he's been able to do playing off of Desmond Bane, again, even Anthony Black, maybe he'll never have to be that level of playmaker, but you're still going to have units to where can he
Right.
cut down on some of the turnovers in the half court when a Desmond Bane isn't on the floor, when he is running these things alone. But yeah, I think he probably has like another level to get to when you look at his ability, like the vision that he does have with his live grip. He is an anomaly relative to just someone his size and build who handles the ball like him. Because like Jalen Johnson's more of a wingy build player. Not to discredit Jalen Johnson, but you look at
He
him and
is. Yes,
yeah.
yes.
So like that's just not. I guess people use the Blake Griffin comp. That might be the best one when you're just trying to look at the same body archetype. But the control that he has when he's getting downhill off the dribble, and that he has worked in confined spaces. I haven't shut the door on, Paolo Banchero entered the MVP conversation in season X. It does get into an interesting existential question that I'm guessing Orlando Magic fans are tired of national talking shitheads like myself asking, but I still consider Paolo the more important player than Franz Wagner long term. But that's the thing we need to see from everybody. From both, if you wanted to pick Franz for this exercise, if you want to pick Paolo, is what can all three of these dudes with Bane look like together? And we don't have that sample size yet. The data on their core lineup is kind of insane, though. It's just a small sample size.
So I was one of those voices as well. And I think I put that voice to rest this year for one reason. The health, as you outlined. When they got Desmond Bane, I was like, all right, look, that's a worthy gamble in many ways. Let's see how that shakes out. Then over the course of the year, when Anthony Black started developing and just popping out right, now I'm in that mindset of, look, don't tinker with Franz Wagner, Paolo Banchero at this point in time until we know what's there with that trio as well as Anthony Black's future development. Because are we sure that Anthony Black is not going to take another leap next year? Because I'm not sure about that. I think he can. And Jalen Suggs, too. I mean, look, he's so often injured.
I love Jalen Suggs.
I love Jalen Suggs. I really do. And Tristan da Silva, I think, is underrated. So, like, I like a lot of these components. And health, yes, that is so crucial to have outlined. We'll see. I can't get there with Paolo in terms of like the MVP stuff. And the reason for that is because I have been looking I've been writing so many articles about this just in terms of like trying to identify certain traits, like what you need to have to reach that level, that like the truly elite top tier levels. It's also why like Cam Boozer, I love him as a prospect, but I don't love him as a franchise altering like lead guy. I think he can be the number 2 guy on a very good team who plays off of a lead guard. Like my favorite destination for him, as many others are probably similar, the Pacers, where when Tyrese Halliburton comes back, he has that lead guard. I think Paolo is in that same bracket. I think him, Pascal Siakam, Julius Randle, I think those guys are in this very, 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 very good bracket, but not, automatically great bracket. Like they need someone else to be the primary engine. And if they're the number 2 guy, you could be in, a very good situation.
You want to each pick one more, and maybe we could run through at the end just a bunch of quick hitters and honorable mentions.
So then let me ask you, do you want the odd duck pick or do you want the very obvious pick? Because I've got one that is a little messed up.
I think you should go with the genuine pick. I don't know what that is.
The genuine pick. Oh, yeah. It's not wow. Genuine.
Well, you're saying the oddball pick is.
I still believe it. I just think, like, I want to sit here and say I brought guys I believe in, but it's a tough sell. Is all I'm saying. Can I go with my guy?
Yeah, get your pick. You go with whatever you want.
Kel'el Ware.
Okay, I didn't expect that to happen.
No, but like
interesting.
Right. So, look, this is a guy who I understand that the basketball IQ is still developing, but he's still so young. And just from year 1 to year 2, I think we saw a lot of improvements just in terms of like just the amount of times where last year he would have stepped into a ridiculous shot, where this year he would look at it, he would gauge, he would like survey the floor. And like Miami has been a weird team. There's been guys in and out of the lineup. They've played inconsistently. His fit with Bam has been so. Like, I'm not putting anything on him, but we've seen, him getting more threes up, higher volume from there. He's a good rebounder. He's he's a guy who can both cut and roll and grab lobs, hit threes. He can swat shots. Like, he'll have these games where he's actually legitimately a good defender, where he will have game-changing plays. His rebounding, like, he's averaging almost 10 boards in 22 minutes of play. That's ridiculous. Like, per 36, it's almost 15 boards per game. He's a sick-ass rebounder. He's a strong scorer overall inside the paint as well. Like, yes, he will need to be set up. There is some serious Amare Stoudemire with a three-point shot vibes coming my way for Kel'el Ware.
How do you feel about him defensively?
Yeah, so that's the thing, right? It's shaky because occasionally he'll have those games I just talked about where he looks outright good and where you can see, oh yeah, I can have him as my backline defender. And then there are the games where he looks, what's the kind way to phrase it? Out of sorts is probably the best way to go about it, where I think he relies a little bit too much on Bam. And I have this sneaky suspicion, which I hate, is that he needs to be thrown into the deep end, like over a vast amount of time, and where it's not just, over the next 3 or 4 games with Bam out to an ankle sprain or whatever, like, yeah, you'll have the primary responsibility. No, I think he needs like half a season to full a season where he's just, hey, Kel'el, you're gonna be our primary defender, buddy. Get used to it. You better absorb everything you can over these next months, and you're gonna have to sink or swim, because it feels like his head is on a swivel and not always in a good way, where he's like, where's Bam? Where's Bam? All right, he's there. Okay, and that can be a good thing, but it can also be a crutch.
Yeah, I wonder if he's going to be one of those bigs to where if you don't need him to focus on, we need you to be our backline protection, but you're going to have to focus on, like, you can't be too ball watchy. And then you trust him in those contexts, which is why it gets to your point about Bam covering up so much if he's going to be in front of Kel'el Ware. Do you worry, though, about, I think defensively he could probably be okay as a base big if we remove Bam from the equation at one point. He's already contesting a ton of shots at the rim, but how much of that is the product of, okay, what does it look like when his head needs to be on a swivel and Bam isn't on the court? Yeah. I more so want to know, do you envision him being able to reach this all-NBA-ish peak while he's playing alongside Bam, or do you think that those two are a little redundant? And the Heat's numbers to start the year were really bad with them on the floor. They've gotten better. The team is now shooting 37% from 3 post All-Star when both those guys play, and they've been a net positive in those minutes. So that's a good sign. I'm just curious, when you have Bam, and it does seem like so much of your intrigue specifically is rooted in Kel'el Ware on the offensive end, rightfully so. Can he ever reach this type of pinnacle alongside Bam Adebayo?
I think it'll be tough, right? Because, again, I do think Bam is so good. He's so seasoned. And again, I think for someone like Ware, it's a bit of a crutch playing with him. So, like, to answer your question, I need to see it in a different context. So, presumably, he'll probably need to go elsewhere. To me, Ware feels like a James Harden situation where if he goes elsewhere and he's being given the starting spot and he's being penciled in for 32 minutes per game, we're going to see him in the MIP conversation. We're going to see it a lot. Like, he's just going to pop. That's my take. And I think ultimately it's going to be statistically where, as the years then progress, the impact is going to come. Because he can go out next year and on a 36-minute basis, that dude can average 25-15 on a per 36, where those are impressive numbers, but he'll probably do it in like 26, 28 minutes per game. Not the 25-15, but like that is what he'll play. But the impact will be sort of questionable. So I think this is like next year he'll be on NBA. I'm looking at Kel'el Ware. I'm thinking like 3 or 4 years down the road when the impact meets the statistical probability that he'll reach.
Yeah, I did not expect you to. I thought you were going to pick Amen Thompson. Was that the alternative pick that you had in this spot?
Why did I not think of Amen Thompson? Yeah, I should have. Yeah. I think, you know me, man, I never go with the traditional picks because I always think a little bit outside the box. Like, I also forgot about Stephon Castle, who, by the way, him and Amen Thompson is that the Spider-Man meme now? Are those guys just the same?
No.
I have Thompson slightly ahead.
Stephon
Oh, nice.
Castle.
Go right ahead. All right.
I thought you were going to pick Amen, but even with Amen still on the table, and this is just mostly guys you went with your oddball pick. So I feel like Amen Thompson might have finished in front. And we should probably talk about him quickly after this. I have counted myself as a Steph. Oh, actually, just to stay true to my brand, if I trusted that he wasn't going to need to be traded or wind up elsewhere to go, the correct answer here is Reed Sheppard. The stuff that so I'm going to bring him up after this, but let's focus on Steph Castle. The defense, the strengths of it, insane. Yep. He might be a 5-position defender at this point. We have seen him defend bigs. Someone at that size, when you're not built like Draymond Green aesthetically, you're not supposed to be able to do that. No one told him. He's a defensive monster. I think the ball handling and the live dribble reads have by and large gotten better. And the things that everyone's going to point to, and as they rightfully should, the jump shooting is going to be a swing skill. We have seen him for pockets of time a lot of them are ultra wide open, but you know what? That's what he needs to do. Those are the shots that he needs to hit. And post All-Star break, he's been hitting them. And his volume has been not huge, 3.5 attempts per game post All-Star, but 40% from 3. If he's going to shoot 40% on catch and shoot threes for like half the season or something, that opens up a different world for him offensively. And the reason I would have him, though, over Amen Thompson is one, I do think I trust, if you're asking someone to just run your half-court offense, I do trust Amen Thompson has more of that blazing on-ball speed. I like the variable cadence at which Steph Castle can handle the ball. And so I think that he could just navigate the half court better, where I don't think that Amen Thompson has enough counters. And now part of Steph Castle's counters are, again, this isn't an astronomical number, but 42% from mid-range this year, a 9 percentage point improvement so far over last year where he was at 33%. And we're not just talking like a lot of that improvement has come from the floater range, but he has some counters on that level. And so if he can do that, if you can be an average mid-range shooter, if you can be a league average 3-point, you don't need them firing up off the dribble. When you look at what he does when he gets downhill and all that he gives you on the defensive end, I really probably, if you would have even asked me a month ago and told me we were doing this exercise, who would you pick? I don't know if Steph Castle would have been one of my top 3. And in some ways, I still want to pick Reed Sheppard over him. I just, looking at the team context is tough for me. And I think that Steph Castle has shown a more offensive improvement than he's probably gotten credit for this year. And I'm not really sure. The 3-point stat's been floating around, and my counter to that would be we can't just live on partial season samples. Otherwise, Jalen Green would be an all-NBA player.
Right. So I mentioned before how the Spurs are just locking teams up in the fourth quarter. He's a big part of that as well. And he's so good at also funneling guys towards Wemby on the back line. And that's such a necessity in San Antonio's defense, having guys to know how to funnel opponents the different specific ways. Now, the biggest, I want to say almost like the biggest compliment in a way is there are so many teams now that are treating Castle basically the same way they are treating Kawhi Leonard. They're starting starting.
I get what you're saying.
Defensively, they're starting the offense away from him. Like, they don't want to have Steph Castle close to the ball. Like, that's a compliment, man. That's huge. I think that's a good name. I love it.
I will say the other thing I'd like for him to improve is he's got to be better at his ability to draw shooting fouls, by the way. As someone who is not treated as a jump shot threat, that's that's great. He's got to be, like, at some point, I really thought his finishing was going to pop more. He's been probably average through his first 2 years, and this just feels like when you look at his size and his on-ball physicality, I thought he might be someone we're talking about in the, he's shooting 68% at the basket, not like low 60s. But
have you noticed, though, when he does have the step, he will just surprise dunk on you? Like, that's interesting to me. Like, he will take off further from the basket. I'll be expecting him to, like, make a layup, and he'll just continue rising up there, and all of a sudden, he's, like, two-handing that shit down in someone's throat. I think he's still trying to sort of test himself out in that regard. Like, where am I as an athlete when I'm jumping up against the trees?
yeah, I mean, having a guard who's also, like, if you want him to finish the other end of an alley-oop, I've only seen it once or twice this season. I'm not saying it's a huge staple, but yeah, he can score, even for someone who's an imperfect offensive player. He can score in a lot of different ways, and is part of why San Antonio right now is built to win games in more ways than they probably get credit for. I think a lot of people just assume, it's their defense or Wemby goes off. And there's a lot of offensive dynamism there, and it's not just Wemby, it's not just De'Aaron Fox. Although what I do think helps Steph Castle is De'Aaron Fox's willingness and ability to play off the ball this season has given him time and space to explore a lot of his playmaking and downhill chops offensively. He is, honestly, I think if you looked at my list so far, there's probably people would say there's two big swings with Castle and Banchero. I think Castle feels like my biggest swing, but his sophomore campaign has been incredible.
I mean, look, my swing with Kel'el Ware is going to take the headlines, so don't worry about it.
Now, Amen Thompson, do you think he should be here?
Yeah, I mean, look, I was actually sticking in San Antonio because I had Dylan Harper. But Amen Thompson, I think, is a good shout. Like, I do think overall he might have the nudge on Steph Castle right now, but I don't know if it's going to stay true. That three-point shot is just so concerning. But, like, he does literally everything else so well. Like, the feel for the game, the defense, the rebounding, the playmaking, just the finishing at the basket. Like, he's so overpowering. And with Thompson, I feel like, you asked me if Steph Castle could defend 5 players. Can Thompson just play 4 positions on both sides of the floor? Like, can he be a 4th position player on offense? Because I think he can.
Offensively, his ability to just navigate tight spaces, away from the ball. Why can't he just play? I guess, I don't know if I trust him as, like, the floor general. You would need to surround him with at least 3 ridiculously level shooters for me to want to even try that full time. But yeah, I've struggled with him. He was on my list, as was Dylan Hart. He's on my, like, longer list. We only went 3 deep each so far. We're going through other names that belong here now.
I thought we went 5.
Oh, all right. Well, then he was on my list. He wasn't one of my 5 though. I haven't seen a big thing, because when you're thinking all NBA, you're talking top 15 player in any given season. If you don't have any sort of range outside 6 feet of the basket, really, that you can bank on, what is your ceiling as a player? And by the way, it's not even just the efficiency, it's what is your volume away from that area. This isn't like someone who's even he's not even really experimenting with threes when you look at his volume. The fact that Steph Castle, just to use that example, they are different players, but the fact that they have some of the same weaknesses, the fact that he's taking over 3 3-pointers a game, that helps in ways that Amen Thompson isn't for Houston right now.
Yeah. By the way, I want to make sure that you know this, because I'm going to read you what you sent me. What if we tweak it a bit to each picking 5 youngsters?
I was cutting us down in real time because we went long. I know it was 5. I was cutting us down in real time.
I wanted credit for getting 5 guys in.
You wanted credit for doing the work that you were supposed to do? Congratulations.
Look, that's how we live in the world right now, right? Like, we need credit for doing the basic minimum.
Right. Do you think Amen Thompson makes an All-NBA team for his career? Do you think he'll make one?
1.
Just one. You're gonna give me that.
I think one at least. Man, now that's way too specific. Yes, I do think he'll earn one. I also just
if
to
I
round
set
out
the
my
over
list.
under at 1.5, what are you taking?
So, because All NBA is also tied to winning, that's where I'm like how will Houston fare as a winning organization? Like KD is going to age out. Like, how is that going to look? Who is that next lineup? Like, do they have enough youth? Do they keep Reed Sheppard? Is basically what you're asking, because they have Reed Sheppard around. They'll be winning again, I guess. Screw it. I'm going to be an optimist. I'm going to say over just for the hell of it.
I mean, the athleticism is nuclear, and there is a dexterity to him as well.
Yeah.
And the defense is just how many all defense. Like, you can even imagine if you think he's going to be a wildly flawed offensive player forever, there could be a perfect storm of circumstances where, he's one of the 5 best defenders plus a net positive on the offensive end. That'll get you to maybe 2 All NBA, especially if the game's played threshold for a lot of guys sticks in place.
I mean,
What's another
if this
name
was
you
an
wanted to talk
all-defensive discussion, he's already made one last year. Like, he'll find himself on that list for like
He's
years
probably going to make, I don't know if I would have him on my first team, but he'll probably make another one this year, right? Or close to it.
I think so.
Who's another player you want to talk about?
So I think we should just mention him briefly. That was Dylan Harper. I think he's got that upside right now. He's a rookie. He's just, I think he's going to be the primary lead guard on that team when Fox is eventually traded or getting older. And to me, the physicality, the way to draw fouls, and the playmaking, the sneaky athleticism, I just love his feel for the game. Mm-hmm. And if he gets like a full season of 34, 35 minutes next to Wemby, this dude is averaging 9 assists per game. Like, his playmaking chops I believe in. So like let's because if we're short on time, let's just wrap that one up there, and let me just give my final shout to the guy I had as well, Deni Avdija. Like, how could we not?
That's a cop-out one, because he's going to make
All
NBA this year. But I would think maybe not if team success is going to factor heavily into the voting equation. So I retract that statement and apologize. He belongs on All NBA,
right?
It's not I think Maxey just lost is going to lose his eligibility, right? So how does Deni Avdija not make an All NBA team at this point?
Yeah, that's fair. All right, but like, I just wanted to say it out loud in case he doesn't make it. Like, 24, 7 and 7. Like, yeah, his shooting percentages have dropped off. That's unfortunate. Also, his stats took a hit with the 1-minute game against Phoenix, right? Like, where he left that. That was, again, very unfortunate. But just the way that he plays in the half court and facilitates teammates, facilitates his own shot, like the dribble, I just think he'll make one. I can't sit here and say that his production isn't good enough to justify it.
No, I mean, Portland has an offense that's in, I think it was the last time I checked when I was looking at it a couple of days ago, it was in the 77th percentile when he's on the floor. Look at the personnel that is around him. Like, for him to be able to do that is big. And I've seen, there's been a lot of criticism about it. Feels like his defense has dropped off. Give him, and I guess now with the way Scoot's back and the way Scoot's been playing, you have someone who can split the offensive load. But the other thing too is that back injury stuff was real. It felt like, and I think I wonder if All NBA wasn't part of the equation, like, would he have just missed more time? Is that something that he might have missed a few more games for? So he's sure as the engine of your offense, there's definitely like flaws there, but he's going to hit 65 games, right? What is he at the last time I checked? He's currently at
52.
52. So, I mean, could be a little tight. So he's missed how many?
It's going to be tight. Yeah. By the way, I'm very proud of you. We were talking about Portland and no Toumani Camara reference yet. That is growth, sir.
Honestly, the more concerning thing is, do you know who the Blazer is on my list? It probably should be Shaedon Sharpe, but it's Donovan Clingan is on my list. He's not necessarily, I'm not picking him, but just what he can do defensively and some of the offensive progression that he's made, I just keeping an eye on it. It does feel Biggs, unless he really starts taking a bunch of threes, it feels like Biggs in his role will have a tougher path to making these teams. given that they're positionless, but I have him circled. He was the Blazer that was on my list. I thought Deni was catnip, but to be fair, when you miss 14 games, there's no guarantee that he's going to be eligible anyway. So that's a good call out. I will go to, so the other two players I had settled on, Reed Sheppard's getting talked about here. This is someone who is already an above average efficiency guy when he is generating his own shot. It doesn't feel like it, but he's shooting 39% from three this year. I want to know what he's going to look like as a passer. He's actually pretty good at setting guys up around the basket when he gets 2 feet into the paint, or even being able to hit guys and creating open threes because of the on-ball gravity he already has. I want to know if another team would be more inventive with the way they use him away from the ball, or is he ever going to get enough agency over Houston's offense other than being the vessel through which he gets Kevin Durant the ball in crunch time or just sort of passes the rock on? That's what I struggled with when, if we were going to limit this to an exercise of 3 players each, does he make that cut? In my heart, yes, he should, because what's one of the toughest things to do is to be an efficient self-starter on the offensive end. Right. And he is, to some degree, he can already be that. Defensively, there are times where he looks really slight. Like for someone who's listed at 6', like when the way I guess like players are just going up against some of these lineups where they're so much bigger, he looks really tiny and easy to overpower on the defensive end. But he's kind of smart away from the ball, and he's gonna
sneaky shot blocker too.
Sneaky shot blocker, yeah, for sure. But he's good, and he's gonna come in from the sides, out of their peripherals, and he's gonna strip the ball, or he's gonna come into the passing lanes. There's just being, if you're not gonna be big, and he could stand to get stronger, don't get me wrong, but if you're not gonna be big or someone who turns off the water, defensive playmaking is a way to make up for some of the, if you view him as a liability status. But if your infrastructure is, we're fucking huge, which is what Houston is. Yeah, I think he could have I can't quibble about his playing time much right now, but their lack of trust in him to not just play at points in crunch time, but more so to do anything with the ball. And I know you have Kevin Durant. I totally get it. But I wish Reed Sheppard had more. I'll frame it this way. He's had more license this year than I kind of expected coming in, and part of that might have been if you're evaluating the Rockets before the Fred VanVleet injury, but he still doesn't have enough. And so as a guy that I believe can be an offensive engine that's going to get at least the defensive counting stats or be, let's say, a good off-ball defender, or at least in the areas where if it's going to come and you're blocking shots or like coming up with steals, that's someone who I think could make a few All-NBA teams.
I think I need to be a little bit more imaginative to see it, but I respect it. And I think the way you fleshed it out was fair. So out of respect for you, I'm just going to say, I hope it happens.
I didn't know what to do here with what is going to be my final pick, I guess. I was banding I didn't want to pick too many rookies. I'm still a believer in Ace Bailey. VJ Edgecombe has obviously had a great year for much of the season. I think I'd be galaxy braining this if I picked him, but I really did think long and hard about Cason Wallace. I ultimately think that I am going to go with Alex Sarr. I'm a big believer in Alex Sarr. I think he's going to be a more efficient scorer, and we've seen him handle physicality, a little bit better inside the arc this year. When I say efficient, I think that he's going to be like a 37% three-point shooter at some point. I love the way he looks when he's bringing the ball up the floor as someone who can do that as a nice change of pace and really push the tempo of your offense, but also just keep defenses on tilt. Defensively, this is terrible to record this after he was on the floor for a huge chunk of time when Bam dropped 83 points. At the same time, he wasn't part of the foul brigade that like in that game, and he needs to get stronger, because if someone like Bam, who's not the most physical player in the NBA, is going to overpower you, like really, like, and see if your body's at a certain angle, he's going to attack you coming from the baseline. Somewhat problematic, but this is someone who he's contested a bunch of shots around the rim. He's responsible for way too much in Washington at the moment. I think he can play alongside another big. That's why if and when we see Anthony Davis make his debut, I'm going to be very intrigued to see what those two look like together. But I think even as a baseline, just rim protector, this is someone who's going to be decidedly above average on the defensive end for years to come. And so if you give me no, I don't think he should be the number one option on offense. But if he can play, what type of role, different players, what would be a good, he feels like he could be a Kristaps Porzingis approximation on the offensive end, where it's no, you don't want to run too much through him if you're going to put him in the post. And Kristaps might, just because of his sheer size, always be more efficient in those instances. But when looking at the usage and where he could stand in an offensive hierarchy, I could see Alex Sarr getting there. It does feel, though, that this is the highest percentile outcome is, he's made I think I'm past the idea of could he be a top 5 or 10 guy in the NBA, but could he end up with 3 or 4 third-team All-NBA appearances? I think that's still on the table.
Yeah. By the way, he only played 20 minutes in that Bam game, and in those 20 minutes, the dude had 28 and 6.
But how many free throw attempts?
Right. Only 0. Yeah. All right. That's true. Yeah. By the way, none of us actually brought up one who I considered as well, which I thought was a little surprising. Are we completely out on Matas Buzelis?
As an All-NBA player?
Well, assuming he gets out of Chicago, I'm assuming, because you have to be on a winning team. But just as an individual player, I think there's something there.
I'm not out on Matas Buzelis. I think he was not on even my long list. I'm not going to lie.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah. He was on a cutoff on mine because I think the productivity, the off-ball shooting, the defensive upside, I just think there's a two-way potential there that is extremely intriguing.
Where, if you don't mind me asking, where are you at with Alex Sarr, though?
Oh, sorry. To wrap up, sorry. I'm in full agreement. I actually loved your KP comparison, or not comparison, but the role envision. Sarr, to me, still has upside. I don't think he's, like you said, top 5, top 10. May not ever crack the top 20, but that's not necessarily a bad thing in today's NBA because the top 20 is freaking loaded. If you're a top 25, top 30 player, you're getting, $30 million a year. You're playing in all-star games. You're here and there at least. You're in the conversation for certain team awards. The two-way upside, I think, is real. I think he needs to move the ball more. I love the three-point confidence that he's had this year. He's stepping into them with a much different mindset. He's finally commanding the ball too. So I've been moaning about this since his rookie season, that Washington guards were so bad at giving him the ball in certain situations where he would be right underneath the basket, or they ignored lobs, and this year he's a little bit more, at least, calling for it, say up top, over here, I'm open. He's calling for it more. He's demanding it more. When you see that they've gone into these offensive lulls, he'll go to a teammate and say, look, give me the ball. So I think there's upside there. I love the mental makeup from him. I think he's more polished in year 2 than I thought he'd be, because year 1 was rough. It was really rough. But if this is the norm, I'm having a really hard time putting a ceiling on this dude.
Yeah, he's someone who I don't know how it's going to work out overall. Again, we disagreed on whether you would have made the swing. He's one of those quintessential players where, all right, we'll put an adult at the point guard position, a Trae Young, a real floor general, and then how does that impact his game, his efficiency and the way that he's able to score there and how he's getting the ball. I don't know if Trae Young is necessarily he's definitely a guy who can extract the most out of a big, but if we're talking All-NBA ceiling, we also want Alex Sarr to have plenty of those on-ball touches or the, grab and go agency. Does Trae Young take away from that at all? I probably feel better about the Alex Sarr All-NBA pick than the Reed Sheppard All-NBA pick, if that's
I think you should. Anyone. Yes, I think you should.
Anybody else that you think deserves a mention here?
Probably, but I hadn't thought about it. I think we've gone through the players so far, which will undoubtedly mean that we'll get flooded with names from a lot of team fans. And you know what? Fair.
Yeah,
go nuts.
The rookies are tough. You have to feel I felt really Flagg is it's the default. Let's just
right.
moving on. I think even you have to feel really strongly about, you mentioned Harper, Knueppel. I would need to feel even more strong, like to go with Bailey or Edgecombe. Maybe some people want to see a Colin Murray Boyles. You mentioned him.
Right.
Derek Queen. What does his role look like in a few years? Something you really kind of have to fast forward further and feel strongly about it. I'm trying to think if there's like any. Let me look at my list right here. Oh yeah, Josh Giddey was at the top, so that's going to be a rough one. I am curious if we're going to get Brandon Miller was on my list. Did you consider him at all?
I did not, because we were talking about Knueppel and LaMelo, and I thought the trio would probably eat votes from each other a fair bit if they stick together. But it's also unfair to look at it through that frame, because, like, what if Brandon Miller is traded one day and he'll have the team of his own? Could he not reach that level? Probably could.
Now, the thing, I self-imposed this, and I should have mentioned it at the top, because you could technically, LaMelo could have been an option here, but I limited myself to 23 and under players. I thought that would make it just a little bit more,
great. So thank you for that. Thank you for.
Well, you did too.
Me.
Who did you pick, except for Deni Avdija, who I said was the top out anyway?
Jalen Johnson's also. He's like 24.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I forgot he's been around but I think that's fine. I just did look. Would you have picked LaMelo?
No, me? No, I wouldn't.
Yeah.
I wouldn't.
I'm going to tell you right now, if I had expanded my scope, LaMelo would have been probably ahead of Knueppel on that list. So,
all right, fair enough.
Which of the Hornets makes more All NBA teams of that trio?
Knueppel.
I'm going to go LaMelo. I'm going to go LaMelo.
Right. That's fine. That's a good way to wrap up the pod. Being wrong. That's cool.
Are you able to tell our listeners where they can find you and all the work that you do?
Yes, you can find me at the NBA Podcast, and you can find me at Yahoo Sports, where I write. If you are Danish, or at least understand Danish, you can listen to Buzzer Beater or Catch Me Calling Games on HBO Max.
Until next time, and as always, we give the shout out to the one, the only, the indelible, the legendary Mr. Frank Ntilikina.